Dear Diary, we are currently sitting in second place in the Premier League, just 1 point behind Liverpool, and we are eager to keep up the pressure on the league leaders. We have two important games coming up to try and close that gap. First up, we have a London derby against Chelsea, which is always a highly anticipated match. We are playing away from home, so it will be a tough challenge, but we are confident in our abilities. After that, we will be travelling to Wolves. They are a strong side, and we can't afford to drop any points if we want to stay in the title race. Meanwhile, Liverpool will be facing Newcastle and Brentford, two teams that they should beat, so it's crucial for us to win our matches and hope that Liverpool slips up. We have been playing some great football lately, and our team is in good shape, but we know that every game is important and we need to stay focused and disciplined if we want to win the Premier League title. Until next time. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 94 of FMOE here on Shaun Does FM with Arsenal. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we pick up right where we left off at the end of yesterday's episode. Two big games in this title race in the Premier League as we do look to keep the pressure on Liverpool. 2 games away from home. First up it is a London derby as we do take on Chelsea from Stamford Bridge, and off the back of that we take on 9th place Wolves as well. So if you're looking forward to those 2 games in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying this series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But as mentioned earlier, we've played no games off the back of yesterday's episode where we did take on Man City in the Premier League and Brentford in an FA Cup semi. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Also made a slight tactical tweak in that episode, and it did pay dividends, winning both of those games. And we're going to try it out again with 2 away from home. All we've done is pretty much make our tiki-taka, instead of being a very low tempo and low passing directness, a lot higher tempo and also not quite as short as it was previously for the passing. And it did seem to work, especially in that game against Brentford. So hopefully it does the case here in these 2 games in today's episode, and we can try and keep some pressure on Liverpool as they do play games around a Champions League first league tie against Man City, which they should really be winning in the Premier League, but they could prove a little bit tricky taking on Newcastle, who are currently in 4th, and Brentford, who are in a similar position to Wolves on the Premier League table. So in theory, it's actually quite similar games that we've both got today, but we've got the added bonus of not having European competition to focus on anymore. So maybe that could be something that does help us out in trying to close that gap on the current league leaders, looking for back-to-back titles. But as nothing's really happened on the field since yesterday's episode, there's not much to catch you guys up on apart from the fact we have suffered an injury in training. It's to one of our first choice players, and Takahiro Tomiyasu. He unfortunately suffered a thigh strain, is out for 3 to 5 weeks, so it does mean he will be gone for most, if not the entire rest of the season. So it does mean that we're going to have to play the likes of Singo and Grass in that right back role instead. And also one of those players is injured, Yannier Grass, currently with some broken ribs, so he'll be out for a little while as well, out for about 5 days. So to be fair, could be featuring off the back of today's episode, but it does mean that today Singo is our only fit out and out right back for today's episode. To be fair, he's done a decent job for us when called upon this season. Hopefully that does continue to be the case and we don't get any more injuries in that position. Otherwise, that could throw the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit in this run home. But that was the big update that we need to give you guys going into these games in today's episode. And first up, it is a London derby as we do take on Chelsea. I believe earlier in the season, it was a draw at the Emirates when we took these guys on. Hopefully, with our slightly higher tempo tiki-taka now, we can pick up a good result from Stamford Bridge. These guys down in 6th should be making their way into Europe for next season, but hopefully we can put that in doubt with a good result here away from home and maybe close that gap on Liverpool on top of the table while they do take on Newcastle on the same match day. But we'll get into the action for this first game of today's episode and hopefully, as I said, close that gap on Liverpool and maybe give ourselves a shot of lifting the Premier League title. We'll come back shortly for the team sheets from Stamford Bridge as we take on Chelsea in our London derby. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. Here are Chelsea, as you can see, mixing their form a little bit, going with a 4-3-3. Some good players, though, in amongst that team in terms of us, obviously, Singo at right back, and also Saka, still not quite recommended to be starting a game, only recommended for 45 minutes, so it does mean Carvalho still on the right wing, but apart from that, it is our first choice 11, and hopefully we can do a decent job here in our London derby at the Bridge. And 4 minutes in, we get the first highlight of this game. It is a throw-in in our favour. Kieran Tierney will find Martin Odegaard and picks out Martinelli here in behind of the Chelsea defence. Tries to put that one in the mixer, but unfortunately Mason Mount will clear that one away. It will be a bit of aerial ping-pong there right on the edge of the box. Odegaard gets it, albeit plays that all the way back to Saliba, who might actually end up being our backup right back for today's episode. Martinelli, nice pass that from Carvalho. The game did freeze there a little bit, hopefully a bit smoother on the replay, but that is a brilliant start. And we go 1-0 up early away from home, and this could be a massive 3 points. This is definitely our toughest game left this season. We do have a look at the run home during yesterday's episode, but a good finish there from Martinelli off that ball from Carvalho, and we take an early 1-0 lead.
Yeah.
And very shortly off the back of that opening goal, the last thing that we needed, it's another injury to a first choice wingback, this time Kieran Tierney. Hopefully not too serious, but I fear it might be. Yakubu will come on for him early in this one, but thankfully we're already 1-0 up. And about 20 minutes off the back of that injury, we do get the next highlight in this game. It's a free kick in our favour, and we do try and pick out Saliba the far post. Can't quite, but we get the ball back from that clearance from Chelsea. But so far, this has been a pretty good first half. Arsenal yet to do much. Martinelli, good chance the far post with his head, but unfortunately, that one goes just over the bar, and we are still 1-0 up. And that was it for the first half. In this one, we go into the sheds 1-0 up, just those two highlights plus that injury to Kieran Tierney. But as you can tell by the stats, we've certainly looked a bit better than Chelsea, albeit not exactly super dominant with only 4 shots, but still, we do take a 1-0 lead into the sheds. I don't think, based on player ratings, we need to make any substitutions just yet, especially having already made one in that first half. So hopefully we can hold on here and pick up a massive 3 points from Stamford Bridge. And just past the hour mark, nothing so far in the second half, but Fabio Carvalho has just picked up an orange injury. To be fair, this was around the time I was thinking to bring on Bukayo Saka anyway, so we'll do that. Hopefully not too serious, that one to Carvalho. Also Jesus only going okay. Manuel Balea will come on for him. Still 1-0 Arsenal with around about 20 minutes left. And shortly off the back of those substitutions, we get our first highlight here of the second half, and it is Chelsea for the first time in this game, who do look like they might do something on the attack. Kante tries to play that ball over, but Coop Miners does well to get it away, but unfortunately Martinelli heads that one down to a Chelsea centre-back, and now they do some good short passing here on the edge of the box, and somehow Thiago Gouveia gets in behind our defence there, and their first attack of the game, albeit to be fair, not a game of many highlights. They do grab an equaliser. That just feels a little bit harsh, and that makes it 1-1 here with 20 minutes left, and I do think maybe we should be thinking about replacing Singo on that red heart that did come through that side, but unfortunately Chelsea do grab an equaliser. So with that in mind, Saliba will have to go out right back. We'll bring on Kamara for Singo, and this is our last stoppage, but to be fair, it doesn't look like we need to make any other substitutions just yet, so I think we'll risk it, and that will be our last one off the back of conceding an equaliser to make it 1-1. And just inside the last 15 minutes of this one, off the back of that last substitution and that equaliser, there is a throw-in here in our favour. It does feel like we've been the better team in this game, even though there hasn't been a lot of highlights, but we do start to make our way, or attempt to make our way out from the back, off the back of that throw, and eventually Kamara will pick out Saka off the bench. Barrea, nice pass there for Odegaard, takes a bit of a speculative shot, and to be fair, forces a decent save low to his right there, out of Erdogan in goal for Chelsea, and Martinelli here with a corner as we try and get back in front at Stamford Bridge, puts it far post, but unfortunately Chelsea do deal with that danger. Odegaard is having a battle there down that right hand side, does just keep the ball, and to be fair, this highlight is going to continue. Coop Miners back to Kamara. Will there be one more chance in this highlight? Big 1-2 here for Bukayo Saka. He was offside, but Erdogan yet again with a very good save and still 1-1 as we enter the last 10 minutes, albeit Chelsea with the free kick, it gets cut off. There's still 1-1 late in this one. And we're just about to enter injury time in this game. To be fair, it has been a very quiet one highlight-wise. You can see there our stats a little bit better than Chelsea's, but unfortunately, that one chance that they did create, they put it in the back of net. But to be fair, encouraging performance with this higher tempo tiki-taka, but we do still get a point there from Stamford Bridge. Could have been a lot worse, but did feel like a game where we potentially could have picked up 3 points with a few good chances off the back of Chelsea grabbing that equaliser off the back of Martinelli, putting us in front early. As I said, not a terrible result, especially if Liverpool do slip up. It would be enough for us to go equal on points with them. Also, Kieran Tierney will check in shortly with that injury to him and also Carvalho. But for now, we go back on top of the Premier League because of goal differential. That's something else which could work in our favour if Liverpool do start to slip up while focusing on their Champions League semi against Manchester City and amongst all those Premier League games. But a game which it felt like we could have won, still a draw. Not a terrible result in a London derby. And back in the inbox off the back of that game, just a quick injury update because we did suffer a few in that game. Kieran Tierney, fractured ribs. He's going to be out for 4 to 5 weeks, so it does look like he will miss the remainder of the season. Might maybe come back the last couple of games, like maybe the FA Cup final, but it does look unlikely. So unfortunately, another first choice wing back is out for us, it looks like, for the rest of this season. Also, Fabio Carvalho, he has got a bruised thigh, is out for 5 to 10 days, so it does mean he will miss our next game away at Wolves in the Premier League, albeit hopefully by then Bukayo Saka can start for a full match. But 2 decent injuries for us there, but still not a bad result, as I said, at Stamford Bridge, and it does mean we are now qualified for the Europa League, but you'd like to think we should be making our way into the Champions League and can hopefully keep up this title challenge. And some big news as we go on forward a few clicks off the back of that 1-1 draw against Chelsea. As you can see, the last match on that match day, the nighttime game from Anfield, Liverpool suffer a 2-1 defeat against Newcastle, so it does mean that now, no more games in hand. We are above them, albeit it is only on goal differential, but still, as we ran through in yesterday's episode, their run home looks a bit tougher than ours. This could end up working in our favour quite a bit. Only 5 games left and we are now on top of the Premier League table off the back of Liverpool, dropping points at Anfield to Newcastle United. And as we inch our way towards that second game of today's episode away at Wolves, as you can see, we've got an inbox item here about this title race. They are including West Ham and Newcastle in this, which is a little bit surprising. It does feel like, in particular, Newcastle probably a little bit too far away, albeit if all 3 teams above them do start to slip up, they could work their way back into it, having just beaten Liverpool. But here is the run home for all 4 teams, mainly focusing on us and Liverpool as we did in yesterday's episode. This one's just a little bit more condensed and it's actually quite nice having it on the same screen. But as you can see off the back of this Wolves game, our last 4 games are against the teams in between 13th and 16th on the Premier League table. Liverpool, Brentford away, then Man City away, which is going to be interesting off the back of having played those guys a few times in the Champions League semis and also last day of the season. They host West Ham in third. Their run home certainly on paper a lot tougher than ours, so maybe now the advantage is with us for the Premier League title. But we've eventually made our way forward to the day of the second game. In today's episode, we take on a Wolves team who we did beat earlier this season 3-0 at the Emirates. Hopefully we can do the same here, even though this is from Molineux away from home. But Wolves are a solid mid-table team, but not in good form at all, having lost their last 4 games. So hopefully we can make the most of that, and the injuries exactly the same as they were off the back of that previous game. But thankfully Bukayo Saka should be able to get through most of the game for this one, so we'll step in for Fabio Carvalho. But we'll get into the action shortly from Molineux, run through the team sheets and hopefully grab a bit of a break in our game in hand while Liverpool do take part in the Champions League as we take on Wolves in the Prem. And here are the team sheets for the second game of today's episode. As you saw earlier, Wolves come into this one in a pretty rank run of form, but they are going with a 4-4-2. Definitely some decent players there in the likes of Barbosa up front. We are in a lot better form. Just a few changes for us. Yakubu for Tierney with that injury. And also, as I said, Saka will start in place of Carvalho, also thanks to an injury, but to be fair, Saka usually our first choice anyway, and hopefully we can pick up a win here to make sure that we can stay above Liverpool on that Premier League table. And just past the half hour mark, we eventually get our first highlight of this one. It's taken a while so far, an even game, 2 shots to each team, but unfortunately neither of them have been on target, especially for us. And now Singo here starts to find some room down that right-hand side, switches it out to Yakubu Pérez, puts that one nearly bottom left corner. To be fair, it should be his assist. For some reason it comes up as Yakubu's, which does seem very harsh, as Martinelli must have got the thinnest of touches on that to put that one away. Back-to-back goals for him in the Premier League, and that puts us 1-0 up in this first highlight. I think that shot might have been going in that corner anyway, but Martinelli just makes sure of it, and we go 1-0 up, about 10 minutes shy of half-time. And not too long off the back of that opening goal, now it's a free kick in our favour here. Martinelli at the far post tries to put that one in that left-hand corner again this time. His header just goes over the bar, so we're starting to build some momentum here late in this first half. But through that early Martinelli goal, it is 1-0, or should I say earlier Martinelli goal, 1-0 before this last highlight of the first half. You'd imagine Bamba here. We have switched to a no-nonsense centre-back for this game, just because it does mean he doesn't have to rely on his composure, which he kind of doesn't have. So I do think that might help us out, hopefully, defensively for this run home. But that's the one change we've made tactically to this one. Off the back of that previous game, another good chance there for Martinelli, but that one comes off the post, and it does mean we'll go into the sheds, having come home quite nicely in that first half with a 1-0 lead thanks to Martinelli. Thankfully, that assist did get credited to Pérez, but in the end, that was a pretty good first half performance. Wolves did have some chances early, obviously, that we did not see through the highlights, but definitely finished that first half off quite nicely. Don't think we need to make any substitutions off the back of that, and we'll get things back underway and hopefully hold on to our 1-0 lead. And 10 minutes into the second half, we're going to make our first substitution here. I think it's probably a safe idea with Saka on a 6.6 to take him off, just to make sure we don't get any more injuries in that position. We'll bring on Trincao out on that right-hand side. Still 1-0 up with 35 minutes left. And 10 minutes off the back of that first substitution, we're going to make some more now, because Pérez has gone down to a red heart, playing quite well, but Sambi Lokonga can come on for him. And also Jesus only going okay up front yet again. I think with Martinelli and quite good goal-scoring touch, we might bring on Vieira and switch him out to a wing and move Martinelli up front. Also put Trincao out left and Vieira out right for these last 20 or so minutes. Still with a 1-0 lead. And off the back of that, we do get a highlight, our first one here of the second half. It starts with a throw-in down that left-hand side, and Saliba plays that forward to Sambi off of the bench. Martinelli out to Vieira, now Singo, and lots of space here down this right-hand side, plays it back to Vieira. Sambi Lokonga briefly loses possession. Thankfully, Coop Miners does get it back. Some wonderful short passing. Vieira linking up nicely with Trincao. Quite a few of our substitutes there linking up together. And I think that one will stand. And indeed it does, and that makes it 2-0 with 20 minutes left in the 69th minute. And that should make sure we grab all 3 points here and we'll stay on top of the Premier League table, even though we would have anyway, of course, with Liverpool today taking part in the Champions League. But that is a good goal, good timing as well. Should hopefully mean that we do hold on here and pick up a win. And off the back of that, might be time for a few more substitutions. We've got 2 left. Singo has gone down to a red heart. So like the last game, we'll bring on Kamara for him and move Saliba to right back for the closing stages of this one. Also Odegaard down to a red heart. We'll bring on young Jan Pulisic for him, and we'll move Vieira into that cam role. Those will be our last 2 subs off the back of going 2-0 up. And only a few minutes off the back of going 2-0 up in those last few substitutions, it is now Wolves with a throw-in inside the final third, but thankfully we do get that ball back now. Coop Miners plays that one back to Ramsdale, clears it long. Can we win that in the air? We can, and Mateus Nunes will knock that one on, but thankfully Bamba somewhat heads that one away, and now it is us getting back on the attack here. Vieira plays that one back to Sambi Lokonga. Trincao there, too much pace for that Wolves right back, makes his way onto the edge of the box back there for Sambi Lokonga. Tries to loop that one top right corner, comes off the post. It was a decent chance in the end, but it does stay 2-0 with 15 minutes left. And just about to enter injury time in this game, and it does look like we're going to pick up a fairly comfortable 2-0 win. We actually get a late corner in this one, which Trincao is going to put into the mix, but it's been a much more dominant performance than in that previous game against Chelsea, albeit somewhat expected in a game which is not a derby, but Trincao here takes his time over this one, looks far post, and Bamba gets up for that one, just puts it over the bar, and now Wolves no doubt will just make sure that this game does end 2-0. I do suspect this one's going to be a bunch of nothing in the remaining 40 seconds, but it does mean no matter what Liverpool do in their next game against Brentford, which will probably get played before we play our next one, which we'll come back for in tomorrow's episode, we will stay on top of the Premier League because of that goal differential, which is now in our favour. That big favour that Newcastle did for us in that previous game does mean we now might have this in our hands. So it could be very good for us at Arsenal, especially with Liverpool having to focus a little bit on the Champions League as well. But that was a good performance. We pick up a 2-0 win, and that will mean we're going to stay on top of the Premier League with only a few games left in our season. And back in the inbox off back of that Wolves game, as I said, it was a very good performance. We picked up a 2-0 win, and as you can see, going over to the table, we are now 3 points clear. Liverpool do have that game in hand, but with only 4 games left, it is in our hands largely because that goal differential is going to be in our favour, and it would take something special for Liverpool to turn that one around. If we win the remainder of our 4 games in the competition, we should be lifting the Premier League title and will be on for a domestic treble if we can also beat Manchester City in the FA Cup final. But I think that will do it for today's episode. Did suffer a few injuries to our first choice wingbacks, but thankfully a draw against Chelsea, which in the end was actually quite a good result, with Liverpool then losing to Newcastle, and then we get the job done 2-0 over Wolves to make sure we will stay on top of the table. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. I think we're going to show you guys the most of the rest of the season with this title race being quite close. If we drop any points, Liverpool could get right back into this. We've got 5 games left in the season, of course, with that FA Cup final considered. We'll just get the head cam out of the way for this one. But we are playing Watford next up. That looks like the winner of these last 5 games, which is probably the biggest given because Watford not doing too well, and that one is at home. So I think we'll come back tomorrow and play our second and third last games in the Premier League. We take on Tottenham in a North London derby, and those guys are actually a little bit relegation threatened. So that could actually be quite a big game for both us potentially winning the title and them staying in the Premier League. So that could be double delight for us there, and we'll also take on Leicester at the King Power, and we'll see what that does heading into the final day of the season, and then we can come back at the end of the week, see if we need to show you guys that Brighton game, which I suspect we will, as long as Liverpool do win the remaining games in the Premier League, and also, of course, that FA Cup final where we will take on Manchester City. But we'll come back tomorrow, show you guys highlights from that Watford game before we take on Spurs and Leicester, and we'll see what those games do in the title race between us and Liverpool, and if they can keep pace with us now that we do have that slight advantage thanks to our goal differential. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.